Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the POCO X3 GT, which is going to be extremely similar to the Redmi Note 10 Pro. As a matter of fact, it does actually say Redmi Note 10 Pro when you log into your Google services, but I'm going to get into the differences about the POCO X3 GT and the Redmi Note 10 Pro. After 2 weeks of using this device with the GT, it's been really solid, and I want to talk about some of the main things that I like about this device, right? And I want to talk about my overall experience of using it for 2 weeks and if it's worth getting after 8 months. So one of the things you might want to know is that this device was released in 2021 in July, so about 8 months ago, whereas the Redmi Note 10 Pro was released a year ago in March. But make sure you guys stay locked in the end of the video. If you're brand new to the channel, make sure you stay locked in with me and subscribe and get notified for more videos just like this. Alright guys, so I have been using the POCO X3 GT for the last 2 weeks, and it's very comparable when you compare it to the Redmi Note 10 Pro that I'm going to be talking about the GT in more detail, because these devices, if you don't know the difference, you may get confused and think they are almost identical, but there are a lot of things that are different about both of these guys. So let's just talk about some of the main things that I do like about this guy. It does have a glossy back. It does have some really nice features like the IR blaster. This guy will have the 64 megapixel camera around back, which is going to be really nice for taking a lot of shots. You can get 4K and everything like that, but just keep in mind that the POCO with the 64 megapixel is going to be different than the Redmi Note 10 Pro with the larger camera, 108 when it comes to the megapixels on the Redmi Note 10 Pro. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that this guy will have a 64 megapixel, but there's a lot of things that this guy has that the Note 10 Pro doesn't have, like Victus glass on there, which is going to be Corning Gorilla Glass 7 Victus, versus the Redmi Note 10 Pro, which is going to basically have it's going to have a nice covering of glass, but it's going to be on the Gorilla Glass 5. And then one of the other things you're going to notice is that both of these devices will be similar when it comes to the performance, and we're going to be getting a nice performance on both of these things, but I'm going to jump into that at the end of the video, so make sure you stay locked in. But we get the IP53 resistance to dust and water on the POCO X3 as well as the Note 10 Pro, and we're also going to be getting a really nice solid display on both of these guys, right? And the GT is going to have that 120 hertz refresh rate, which is going to be nice with 8 gigabytes of RAM coupled with 128 gigabytes of internal storage. So I just want to make note of that you will get a large amount of storage, and you could also get the 256 gigabyte version, right? And it's going to be pretty solid, but the cameras on here are really solid, and I'm going to jump into some of the camera samples with the 64 megapixel OmniVision camera right now.
Ready?
So like I said before, right, this guy is going to have that 64 megapixel, and the Redmi Note 10 Pro is going to have the 128 megapixel, but they're both going to share the exact similar configurations with the 8 megapixel wide angle and 2 megapixel macro cameras, right? So they're both going to share that, as well as the 16 megapixel around front, right? But the main difference when it comes to the performance with this guy is that it's going to have the memory, which is 8 gigabytes of RAM, and then it's going to give you virtual memory, 3 extra gigabytes of RAM, so you'll have 11, and it's going to take it from the internal storage, as long as it's available from the 128 gigabytes of internal storage. So it will take it from there as long as it's available, and you will be getting a really fast, snappy processing chip on here, which is going to be the MediaTek Dimensity 1100. So it's going to be different because the Redmi Note 10 Pro will have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 732G, and the MediaTek chips have been getting a lot better, right? Really a lot better. Even on the Geekbench performance test, it did show that the X3 was a bit more powerful. But just keep in mind that the base model for the GT is going to be 8 gigabytes with 128, whereas the Redmi Note 10 Pro will have the 6 gigabytes of RAM with the 128 or the 64. So it's going to be a bigger configuration of storage of RAM when it comes to the GT. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Hey, what's going on? So this is the dual mode right here. I'm looking at the sunset in front of me. It's crazy. And then on the behind me, you can see behind me, I'm gonna switch it. So now I'm looking at the sunset. That's crazy, right? You can see it actually moving. It's going down right now. It's crazy. Let me do a quick pan so you can see around me, but this is kind of fire because you could just see everything front and on behind you and on in front of you. We'll switch this again. Let me know how that is. I like that feature where you could flip it. Hey, what's going on, guys? So this is 30 frames per second for 1080p, 60 frames per second 1080p. So let me know how it looks on the rear-facing camera. Hey, what's going on, guys? So this is the front-facing camera. Let me know how the microphones are doing, but this is the front-facing camera. But let me know how the front-facing camera looks when I'm recording in 1080p.
So when it comes to the POCO X3 GT, you will have a better performance overall with the 6nm MediaTek Dimensity 1100, right? And then the Redmi Note 10 Pro will have that Snapdragon 732G processing chip, but it won't have the 5G. So I just want to throw that out there. And then the screens are going to be extremely similar, right? Because the only difference is that the Redmi Note 10 Pro is going to have that Super AMOLED Full HD Plus display at 20:9 aspect ratio, whereas the POCO X3 GT is going to have a 6.6 LCD IPS Full HD Plus 20:9 aspect ratio. So when it comes to both screens, obviously the Super AMOLED is more preferable on the Redmi Note 10 Pro. So I just wanted to talk about that and also talk about the weight of these guys are identical, 193 grams of weight. So it's not too heavy of a phone, but it does have some decent weight in the hand, polycarbonate materials around the edges of this guy, along with the Gorilla Glass Victus 7, which is pretty cool, right? And we're gonna get a really good detail when it comes to the the display. It's gonna have 399 for the PPI high density on this POCO X3 GT, right? But then on the Note 10 Pro, it's gonna have the 395 high density, so slightly more pixels on the GT, right? So you will be able to see slightly better detail with the pixels, right? But then the Super AMOLED is going to be on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, right? So it's just the give or take, but obviously we're going to get that Gorilla Glass 7 on the the GT, which is going to be pretty cool versus the 10 Pro, right? So I just wanted to throw that out there, that the 10 Pro will have the Gorilla Glass 5, whereas the GT will have this on there, right? So I just wanted to mention that. And they both do have dual speakers, which is really crazy, and the speakers on the GT are actually tuned by JBL and their dual stereo speakers, right, with the Dolby Atmos. So I just wanted to mention that. But we're going to get high-res audio as well on the Redmi Note 10 Pro, and it's just going to be the high-res audio with the stereo speakers. So I just wanted to mention that, right, because both of these phones are going to have extremely good sound quality when you listen to them for social. You could be watching movies, Netflix, you could be watching YouTube, Spotify, or Pandora, right, or anything of that sort, because both of these guys, just to say the least, when we're talking about audio quality, it's going to be really, really punchy and rich when it comes to the audio and a full sound. It won't have that tinny sound to it. So I just wanted to mention that. But obviously the POCO X3 GT will have a really good performance and a frequency of 2.6 gigahertz when it comes to the frequency rate, right? And it's going to be really fast with the 8 gigabytes coupled with the extra 3 gigabytes of virtual RAM on this thing. So it did perform super fast with that extra 3 gigabytes of RAM. We also do have a gyroscope, compass, accelerometer, light sensor, fingerprint sensor, facial recognition, as well as a super quick fingerprint sensor on the side of here, which is definitely pretty cool, because if you're the type of person who wants to open your device, you will have two options: the facial ID as well as the side mounted fingerprint sensor. And the pictures came out extremely vibrant, colorful, and natural when it came to the pictures on the 64 megapixel shooter. So I was taking some really good snaps with the shooter on this thing, and it was extremely clear, detailed, and also very dynamic when it came to the range, right? But we will have VC liquid cooling on here as well. So if you play a lot of games, the phone will dissipate the heat automatically. And I was taking some really good shots, portraits, as well as, the front-facing camera did take some decent portraits. Then the rear recorded in 4K 30, but 1080 60, 1080 30 as well, with steady shot as well. So you will get some stability on this guy. You also will get a ton of updates with this thing and customization when it comes to the themes and the wallpapers and the home screen options, as well as the different options when it comes to the notification center. You can change it to the old Android theme or the newer MIUI theme. So overall performance was pretty solid. I do like they have their own control center separate from your notifications menu, and it's going to provide really good images with the 16 megapixel shooter on the front, as well as on the rear with the 64 megapixel main camera, 8 megapixel for wide angle, 2 megapixel for macro, right? And we're going to get manual focus. We're also going to be able to get pro mode with the video on this guy. So I can't stress enough how important that is. If you're the type of person who likes to record video, this will be pretty solid when it comes to tailoring the footage and the bokeh in the background. When you're taking video, you can definitely manage the focus to your own personal preference, right? And when it came to the call quality, every single time I was taking a call, I had no issues whatsoever, because the speakers did sound pretty good. When I was listening to phone calls, it sounded like they were in HD call quality, and it did hook up to the network extremely quick. There were a few dropouts in some areas, but overall the 5G did connect pretty quickly, depending on where I was at. Wi-Fi 6 is on board here, as well as Bluetooth 5.2. So for the audio codec, we will get advanced audio distribution profile, low energy consumption, aptX, as well as LDAC and AAC. And for the navigation, we are getting the GPS, AGPS, the GLONASS, the BlaDAO, the QZSS, the Galileo, and the Blue DAO. So I definitely like this thing for navigation, audio, overall build quality, performance, cameras, and screen display. But let me know what you guys think about this POCO X3 GT. I definitely think that it has a lot of things that I like about it when we compare it to the Redmi Note 10 Pro, especially the 5G capabilities, as well as the really good battery life on here, as well as the Dimensity chip. But let me know what you guys think, and I appreciate every single last one of you, and I'll get right back with you. I'll check you guys later. Peace.